Gotta thank Yahweh for being the chosen seed of Israel. Here's the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of the Yah and the faith of Mashiach. Whoa, yeah. I gotta thank Yahweh for being the chosen seed of Israel. Here's the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of the Yah and the faith of the Mashiach.
Shalom, Zion. So how many of you out there heard somebody say, or the phrase, you are who your father is? Exactly. Everybody watching this video have heard that. Even way before we came into the truth, the notion of a so-called black man, and I'm using black man in terms of the sleeping Israelite, that if a black man married a heathen, had a heathen child, that child was considered black by the world standard. That's why you have people like Tiger Woods, Ice-T, Drake, and many more who are mamzers, who are mixed, but by the world standards, they are considered black because that's the way they look at them. But that's not what the scripture teaches. The scripture teaches totally opposite, because if you're a so-called Israelite and you marry a heathen and have a child by that heathen child is not an Israelite. It is a mixed child. It is a bastard. And according to Deuteronomy, that seed cannot come back into the congregation until the third generation. But what I want to cover today is the pedigree by the house of their fathers, because how many times have we seen people use this verse, and every time somebody tries to justify marrying of heathens or having children of a mixed seed, this is the first verse and only verse they run to. So we're going to go there. So let's go ahead and turn to Numbers chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 18, and we're going to dig deep because we're going to see what this is really talking about. And you're going to see that it has absolutely nothing to do with a so-called black man, Israelite, marrying a heathen woman and having a child by that heathen woman and claiming that child to be Israelite. This has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with that. This is not what that's talking about. And a lot of people get this one verse mixed up to justify heathen children as Israelites. All right, so let's read verse 18, Numbers chapter 1, verse 18. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month. And they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward by their polls. Now, in order to completely understand this, we're going to have to go to the beginning of this chapter and see why they were doing this. Why were the pedigrees, why were they gathering up the pedigrees after the families by the house of their fathers? What was this for? So let's look at the word pedigree. Pedigree simply means lineage, but let's look a little further so you can see with your own eyes. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at pedigrees. We're going to look at H3205 and look at a deeper meaning of what pedigree means. And again, simply it's just lineage. But here's the Strongs. Out of my own Strongs, had this thing for a long time. And what I want to show you is where it says to show lineage. And that's basically what they're doing in this verse. That's all it is. Now you got to understand, there are no heathens in our lineage. No heathens whatsoever. There are no heathens that belong to the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes are all Negroes. Negroes. Not mixed, but Negroes. All right, so we must understand that. So the verse Numbers 1:18 has absolutely nothing to do with a so-called Israelite man having a child by a heathen and claiming that child as an Israelite. Because remember, if you read the last two books of Ezra, they had to put away all their heathen wives and the children that were born unto them. So that right there tells you that the Most High does not play when it comes to mixing with the heathen nations. Now, let's go and see what Numbers 1:18 was really talking about. And you know, when you're reading scriptures, if you really want to know the whole context, all you got to do is just read above or read the chapters prior or after. You know, the answers are there. You know, people just take one verse and then they run off with it and try to fit it into something else. You know, so many of our people do that constantly. So let's go up to verse 1 of Numbers 1, and I'll be reading from the Apocrypha. And it goes on to say, "And the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tabernacle of the congregation, on the first day of the second month, in the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt." So this was shortly after they came out of Egypt, saying, "Take ye the sum of all the congregations of the children of Israel, after their families, by the house of their fathers." Did y'all hear that? We just read that in verse 18. It says, "By the house of their fathers, with the number of their names, every male by their poles." Look at verse 3. "From 20 years old and upward, all that are able to go forth to war." Now let me read that again. I'm going to start from verse 3 again. "From 20 years old and upward." So that means that all the Israelites, the males, only the males who were 20 years or older were selected for war. So from 20 years old and upward, all that are able to go forth to war in Israel, thou and Aaron shall number them by their armies. Verse 4, "And with you there shall be a man of every tribe, every one head of the house of his fathers." So this is what Numbers 1:18 was talking about. It was talking about wartime. So the Pedigrees was just simply getting all the sons, you know, from their father's houses. You know, we know we had 12 tribes, so you know, all these different males from different tribes were gathered to prepare for war, to get the numbering. So that's what Numbers 18 was all about. So when you hear somebody say, "You are who your father is," and they're trying to use this verse, no, this has nothing to do with this. This was talking about gathering 20 years, Israelite males 20 years or older to fight in the war or to go to war, to be eligible for war. And this is the thing that we got to stick to. So this has nothing to do with marrying outside or marrying a heathen. Now, we're going to get some more witnesses to show you that you are indeed not to be going outside of Israel, or you cannot claim to have a heathen wife and a child and then call that child an Israelite. You know, that's a no-go, and that child would not be an Israelite. And that's what got a lot of our people in trouble. That's what got us in trouble as a whole. Now, there were times where during wartime, when our people would, you know, capture the people and had them as spoils. Now, remember, they were not to, these heathens that they captured were not to replace the Israelites. They were to be servants. They were to be our slaves. That's it. But what did Israel do? Started having children by them. And that's what got them in trouble. And that's why the Most High says that, you know, Ezra, you tell your people that they need to get rid of their heathen wives and the children that were born unto them. Now, here's another reality you can look at. Now, if you are who your father is, and it don't matter who you have children by, but that child is considered an Israelite, if that was the case, then guess what, brothers and sisters? Then the people of Ezra time would have been able to keep their heathen wives and their children. You see what I'm saying? So that goes totally contrary to the word of the Most High. So absolutely no mixing. So Numbers 1:18, if you hear somebody use that to try to justify you are who your father is, go and tell them what Numbers 1:18 really means and what it was really talking about. Now we're going to look at another witness that instructs us not to even tamper with heathen women. So when people use the phrase, "you are who your father is," that is only applying if you marry within your own nation. Let me repeat that again. When you hear the phrase, or when somebody says you are who your father is, that only applies when you marry and bear children within your own nation. Plain and simple. So let's go to the book of Tobit chapter 4. And let's start with verse 12. We're going to read verses 12 and 13. And it says, beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy father. And take not, y'all hear that? And take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe. For we are the children of the prophets, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred. Y'all hear that? They all married wives of their own kindred. Now, you may want to read that about 10 times over, so it sinks into your head. And were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land. Let's look at verse 13. Now, therefore, my son, love thy brethren, and despise not in thy heart thy brethren, the sons and daughters of thy people, in not taking a wife of them. For in pride is destruction and much trouble, and in lewdness is decay and great want. For lewdness is the mother of all famine. So this is very clear and straightforward, Zion. So let me repeat this phrase again. Now, you are who your father is. That only applies if you marry and bear children within your own nation. All right, it's not hard to understand. But if you bear children outside of your nation with heathens, and that child, and you bear that child, then that child is not who the father is. All right, that child is a bastard. That child is a heathen. So in that case, when you go outside of the nation of Israel, then you are not who your father is. That's point blank. That only applies when you marry within your own nation and bear children within your own nation. All right, let's get another witness. Let's go to Numbers chapter 36, and we're going to read verse 9. And this is also clear, concise, and straight to the point. It says, neither shall the inheritance, y'all hear that? Neither shall the inheritance remove from one tribe to another tribe, but every one of the tribes of the children of Israel shall keep himself to his own inheritance. So technically, we wasn't even supposed to be mixing with the other tribes. But that right there just goes to show you, Zion, that everything, all the marriages, bearing children, the Most High specifically instructed to bear children and marry within their own nation. Anything outside of that is an abomination. So let's read this again. Verse 9. Neither shall the inheritance remove from one tribe to another tribe, but every one of the tribes of the children of Israel shall keep himself to his own inheritance. And so that's why when we read in the book of Numbers chapter 1, verses 1 through 18, this is exactly the example. This is the precept to that, because they numbered the children from 20 years and up from the pedigrees of their fathers. So in other words, whatever tribe you was from, you were counted eligible for war if you were able to go to war. So that's what that's talking about. So when we read scriptures, we really got to be careful about not taking it out of context, because people will take one verse and then they'll try to apply it to justify marrying of heathens. and when it has absolutely nothing to do with that. So Zion, we have to be good stewards of the Most High's word and not take things out of context and not try to add to the Most High's word, because that's very dangerous, and that's what gets a lot of us in trouble. Now let's get another witness to prove to you that you are only who your father is when you marry and bear children within your own nation. So let's go to the book of Ecclesiasticus or Sirach. So Ecclesiastes or the book of Sirach, they're both the same. Chapter 26. Chapter 26, and we're going to read verses 19 through 21. And it goes on to say, "My son, keep the flower of your age sound, and give not your strength to strangers." What did I say, everybody? To strangers. Give not your strength to strangers. In other words, do not be messing around with these heathens. But what do our people do? They go and had babies by these heathens. And even within the awakening of Israel, you know, you got everybody, the camps are doing it. They're marrying the Mexicans and Hispanics and Native Americans, and because they hate their own people. And this goes way beyond that, Zion. This thing is deep. And our people have totally gone and lost their mind. Read verse 19 again. "My son, keep the flower of your age sound, and give not your strength to strangers." Verse 20. "When you have gotten a fruitful possession through all the field, sow it with your own seed." Now, last time I checked, this did not say heathen seed. It didn't say sow it with any heathen seed or sow it with stranger seeds. All right, verse 20, I need to read that very closely. It says, "When you have gotten a fruitful possession through all the field, sow it with your own seed, trusting in the goodness of your stock." Now that key word, sow it with your own seed, is very important, because for some reason our people tend to forget that. Verse 21, "So your race, or I should say nation, so your nation which you leave shall be magnified, having the confidence of their good descent." Descent. But what are we doing right now, Zion? We are mixing it's like mixing is at an all-time high amongst our people. And it's at a scary level right now. I mean, it's at a really scary level. And we're the only ones that are doing that. All right, so let's go ahead and get another witness. And we're going to be coming from Malachi chapter 2. Malachi chapter 2, and we're going to read verses 11 and 12. Now, I will be reading from the Sefer on this one, and you might want to go ahead and buckle up your seat belts, strap them real tight, because this is going to be a hard puncher right here. So let's start with verse 11. It says, "Yehuda has dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Yasharel." Y'all hear that? Yehuda has dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Yasharel and in Yasharelim. "For Yehuda has profaned the holiness of Yahuwah." Did y'all hear that? "For Yehuda has profaned the holiness of Yahuwah, which he loved, and has married the daughter of a strange El." Now, Zion, I want you just to use your heads. Now, do you really believe, after everything we've read, do you truly believe that the Most High will approve of us marrying strange heathen, strange women? Do you really believe that he would approve of us getting with heathen nations outside of our nation and having babies by them? Y'all really believe that the Most High would approve of that after reading everything we've read already? And I guaranteed you, even after this video, you still going to have some awakened brothers and sisters that's going to say, it don't matter. It don't matter. Well, it does matter. And this is crazy. Look at verse 12. "Yahuwah will cut off the man that does this." Y'all hear this? Yahuwah will cut off the man that does this. So when somebody tries to use Numbers 1:18 to say you are who your father is, and they're marrying outside of their nation, it says you will be cut off. That's why that child cannot come back into the congregation until the third generation. See, y'all think the Most High just say things just to be saying it. You know, we got to realize, Zion, that the Most High is nothing to be played with. All right? This is the same Yah that says that he will rejoice in our destruction if we turn against him. And I can prove that to you from the scriptures. But let me just read this. Let me finish reading verse 12. It says, Yahuwah will cut off the man that does this, the master and the scholar, out of the tabernacle of Yaakov, and him that offers an offering unto Yahuwah Sebaoth. That is serious. And that's why when you read the book of Hosea, the northern tribes, the Most High had to give them a bill of divorcement because their treachery was so great, their abomination was so great that the Most High was like, you know what, I'm cutting y'all off. But then, you know, he gathered them back in during the time of the Mashiach and Paul and the apostles. But, you know, this goes to show you, Zion, we cannot play around with this. This is not something that we should take lightly. Now, I want to bring out something I said a few seconds ago and how the Most High rejoices to our destruction if we turn against him. Now, when I read this thing is about as scary as it is wonderful. And let's go to Deuteronomy 28 and 63. Deuteronomy 28 and 63, because when I read this, when I read this a long time ago, it brought chills up my spine, because the Most High is nothing to play with. And if we continue to go on that disobedient route, I'm telling you, our people are in for one hell of a shock. So let's look at verse 63. And I'm reading from the Sefer as well on this one. And it shall come to pass that as Yahuwah rejoiced over you to do good. Now get this. He rejoiced over us to do good and to multiply you. So Yahuwah will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught. And ye shall be plucked from off the land whither you go to possess it. That is hardcore, Zion. So just as Yah is merciful, he is destructive. It's like two opposites on the poles. So you do not want to cross or get on the Most High's bad side, because he will do good for us. And that's all he wanted to do for us, for our people. He wanted us always to be on top, only if we obeyed his commandments, which were very easy. The only thing that I'm telling you, Zion, you really got to go back, because the commandments are not hard. We make them so difficult. The Bible says my commandments are not grievous. All they had to do was not get with these heathen nations and mix with them. You know, what's so hard about that? But it's crazy, because our people keep repeating the same mistakes, and you wonder why people keep being destroyed and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and break it off here. But bottom line, Zion, look, keep his commandments. Stop making excuses to not keep his commandments. And the more we make excuses, the more we're going to continue to be destroyed. And when you're looking at our people right now and you're seeing the things that are going on, you know, I see it now. And until our people realize who their enemies are and that they need to separate from them, we're going to continue to see this. And if you have noticed, Zion, notice that the more the heathens torture us, the more they oppress us, it seems like, no, it don't seem like, it is. It's like the more our people cling to them. Kind of like a beat, wounded dog clings to his master, you know, when his master's constantly beating him. That's the way I'm seeing my people, Zion. It's sickening. It's so sickening that it's embarrassing. It's very embarrassing, you know, to see our people in this condition. But it is what it is. But for us, for the awakening, we must pray for our people, keep these commandments, and live, Zion. So with that being said, I say shalom and stay strong.
Here's the passion of the saints. Here are they to keep the commandments of the Yah and the faith of the Mashiach. Oh, yeah, whoa. I'm here to encourage you, brothers and sisters, trying to paint to you a better picture. Everything I say, I back it up with the scriptures to get you out the matrix. It's been over 400 years of lies. You gotta open up your eyes, 'cause there's so many reasons we in captivity. You gotta flee from the heathens. There is hope in our future, even though they trying to do us in. But we live to fight another day. Vengeance is to Yah. We'll be praying for Yahuwah. Gotta thank Yahuwah for being the chosen seed of Israel. Here's the patience of the saints. Whoa. Here are they to keep the commandments of the Yah, and the faith of Mashiach. Oh, 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 yeah, yeah. I gotta thank Yahuwah for being the chosen seed of Israel. Here's the patience of the saints. Here are they to keep the commandments of the Yah and the faith of the Mashiach. Oh, oh, hey, hey, whoa, whoa. Do, do, da, da, da. Do, we, do, we, do, we, do, da, da. Do, we, do, 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 da, da. Do, 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 da, do. Be, do, da, do, 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 da, da, da.